Hey everyone, it's Caitlin and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make an easy peasy, well kind of easy peasy, but nevertheless delicious vegan eggplant lasagna. I've wanted to make an eggplant lasagna for quite some time now. I actually made one in a budget-friendly video series that I did a few months ago, actually like almost a year ago I think, and so many of you guys have liked it and recreated it. But honestly, when I made that eggplant lasagna, I was just kind of throwing stuff together and I was on a limited budget. But it does really well on my blog, and I wanted to make one that was the real deal vegan eggplant lasagna. So this recipe does take a little bit more work because there's no pasta noodles and you have to prep the eggplant and the filling ingredients, but I promise it is so worth it. This meal would be perfect for a holiday entree or a special occasion dinner with family and friends. And all in all, it's just really yummy. I wish I had some with me right now, but I've already eaten all of it. But nevertheless, let's get into the recipe video and I'll show you how to make it. First up, we're going to prep the lentil filling for our lasagna. This filling is nice and hearty from lentils and a bunch of other veggies to keep this lasagna nice and filling, even though we're not using pasta noodles. So to start out, we're just going to saute some onion in some water or vegetable broth or oil if you so desire until it is nice and translucent. And then we're going to add in some carrots. I finely chopped mine so they have a bit of a nice texture to them, as well as some crushed tomatoes and some tomato paste. And before we add in our lentils, we're just going to stir this together, and this helps sort of dissolve or break up the tomato paste more evenly into the mixture, because sometimes it can get a little tricky after you add the lentils. So then we're going to add our lentils and the vegetable broth. And then for our herbs, we're going to be adding some fresh parsley along with some fresh basil. Then you're going to give everything a nice good stir and bring this to a boil, then reduce the heat to a simmer and cook and cover this for 30 minutes, and the lentils will absorb all of the moisture. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to prepping our eggplant for the lasagna. You're going to need about 3 large eggplant for this recipe. It does make quite a bit of lasagna, but we need a lot of eggplant for our layers. So we're going to slice our eggplant, and you want to slice them so they're about 1/3 to 1/2 of an inch thick. This is important because it's going to affect your noodle thickness and how the eggplant cooks as well. So you're going to do this to all 3 of your eggplant. I just recorded myself doing 2. And then we're going to lay them on a baking tray, and a lot of recipes call for salting the eggplant and letting it sit. Honestly, I don't got time for that, and I've never noticed a bitter eggplant. What I just like to do is roast it in the oven, and this helps dehydrate the eggplant some and remove some of the moisture, so our lasagna itself isn't going to be mushy in the final step. But I find that when you add salt to it, the eggplant gets super salty afterwards, and that's hard to control based on each person and when they remake the recipe in their kitchen at home. And we have one final step, which is an important step to our eggplant lasagna, which is making our vegan ricotta cheese. We're going to be using a mix of firm tofu and some soaked cashews. The tofu gives it a nice fluffiness and whipped texture to it, where the cashews provide the fat that typical ricotta has and also gives it some texture. So you're going to add those plus some garlic cloves to a blender or food processor and blend everything until well combined. I would suggest using a food processor for this recipe if you have one. Mine was just super tiny, so I had to do everything in batches. And now we're going to add the nutritional yeast, the lemon juice, some black pepper, some salt, don't forget the salt, cheese is salty, some Italian seasoning, and some lemon zest. And then you're just going to blend this again until all of the flavors combine. Like I said, if you have a larger food processor, you can just plop everything in there and then process it, and then you're done. And as you can see, you get a nice thick and whipped texture that has a really similar consistency to ricotta cheese. Ooh, look at that. I love this recipe, and you can also use this recipe for your own vegan recreations. It's just a really dang good ricotta. So at this point, our lentils will be cooked. As you can see, there's not a lot of moisture left in the pot, and this is exactly what we want. We want our lasagna to be as dry as possible, because once it gets in the oven, the eggplant's going to get juicy. So we want our fillings to be relatively dry. So once we have all of this, we are ready to assemble. All we're going to need, in addition to the other ingredients that we prepped, is some pasta sauce. So I'm using a pretty large casserole dish for this, and you're going to start out by pouring some marinara sauce on the bottom of the pan. You can make your own if you want, but I thought that was kind of overkill, so I just used some store-bought. And then you're going to add a layer of eggplant, and for the first layer of eggplant, you want to make sure that the eggplant is overlapping everything and that there aren't any huge cracks, so the lentil filling doesn't leak out from the bottom. So then you're going to pour about half of the cooked lentil filling onto the lasagna, then just evenly spread that out over the pan. And then we're going to add a third of the ricotta cheese. So I just used a cookie scooper because that was easier to plop it on, and then I just used a spatula to spread it evenly around. And then that's it for our first layer. And then with lasagna, you guys know we're just going to be repeating the process. So then you're going to add another layer of eggplant. It doesn't matter as much with this one if there are extra holes, but if you can, still try to fill all the holes. And then you're going to follow it with the remainder of the lentil filling, and then the second third of that vegan ricotta cheese. We're just gonna plop that all up on there, make everything nice and cheesy and delicious. And then finally for our top layer, we're going to use up the rest of our eggplant pieces. I did use all 3 eggplant for this recipe, so I would suggest that you find 3 large eggplants because you're gonna need it. And then we're going to spread on the remainder of the vegan ricotta cheese, followed by about a cup of the marinara sauce. And then you're just going to, again, use a spatula to sort of mix the cheese and the sauce together to make a nice top cream layer. Then you're gonna pop this baby into the oven, and after about 35 minutes, it's gonna come out looking something like this. The cheese will get nice and dehydrated on the top, and it will be bubbling and sizzling, and it's gonna smell really freaking amazing. So then you can cut it if you want. I found that it helps to use a lot of short strokes with a knife, so I wanted to show you here when you're cutting, just to make sure you're cutting through all of the eggplant pieces, as because eggplant has more fiber than typical pasta, it can be a little bit tougher to cut through. But if you have a sharp knife, you really shouldn't have any problem at all. So after you slice it, you can go ahead and serve it. So get your spatula and scoop a nice little juicy piece up on out of there. Wow, look at that, so beautiful. You can plop it onto a plate, and I like to top mine with a little bit of extra fresh parsley, as well as some fresh basil and maybe a little bit of black pepper as well. And you're all ready to enjoy, and enjoy it you will, I promise. It's delicious. Alright guys, and that is it for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have tried eggplant lasagna before. And also let me know, do you prefer lasagna, ravioli, or plain old pasta? I feel like that's hard because they're all very different, but I don't know. I usually like to ask you guys a question, so that's my question for today. And if you're new here and you like what you see, you can feel free to hit that little subscribe button right down there. I post 2 new recipes every single week. And now that we're moving into the holiday season, there's going to be a ton of more cozy, warm, and comforting, but still healthy vegan recipes that I'm going to be sharing with you guys that still taste delicious. So I hope you're getting excited because I am pretty excited to share them with you. That is all for now. So have a wonderful rest of your day, whatever time of day it is for you. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.